So we are giving you your weekly dose of football that the Tennessee Titans unceremoniously ripped from our grasp because the NFL will not allow the Bills to play on Tuesday night and then Thursday night against the defending champs, which I guess is fair. This is Joey, if you're new here, and I am joined, as always, by Steeler Chad.
It's good to see you, Joey. It's always good to see you.
It's good to see you too, buddy. Another victory week for the both of us.
Dude, and really for the AFC North overall, 3-1, that historically is unusual. Because we have two teams that are super losers, but not forever. Not forever. The times, they are a changing.
We'll see. Our most recent sampling may cause people to pump the brakes a little bit, but we'll get there. What you drinking tonight, buddy?
We got a special one tonight, Joey. This is called 100 Feet North. It's country beer. It's by a brewery called Suarez Family Brewing. They're out in New York, somewhere upstate. Livingston. Do you know where that is?
No, me neither. Upstate Vermont.
New York. This is in New York.
New York.
That's why it's special, because I don't get there very often. They don't distribute very widely. So this was brought to me by a friend after he went to visit some family. So it's a nice little treat. We always treat ourselves well here on the AFC North cast, win or lose. But tonight, this one was sitting in the fridge because I thought I was going to drink it earlier. I didn't. I needed the space. We got a win. We own Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is ours. So why not treat myself, right?
That's right. I'm a little disappointed. Is there any maple in that beer?
No.
You should add some to it. Just
You're right.
Go half and half.
I really blew that. I really blew it. And I think I owe a lot of our listeners apologies here, maybe all of them, because I have spent weeks and months not treating a person like a person. Chase Claypool was born in British Columbia. He's a Canadian citizen. He grew up playing Canadian football, but he was a star. In hockey, didn't know that. Wasn't on the Wikipedia page. Maybe it was. And you know what? He went to Notre Dame. He's a star. We talked about all the football accolades. This guy is his own man, and I have been calling him Megatron. Megatron, the name of another football player. And maybe some people thought he didn't deserve that nickname. Well, I'll tell you what. He didn't. He didn't deserve that treatment because he is his own person. He's a Canadian football playing man. Went to school in Notre Dame. Mapletron. From here on out, Chase Claypool will be known as Mapletron because he's his own man. And he sure as heck proved it on Sunday, didn't he, Joey? Didn't he, eh?
It's a fantastic nickname. It really is. I like it a lot. I mean, 3 of his 4 touchdowns were objectively not spectacular. Some might say cheap. I don't know. Not me. But some people maybe could.
I disagree.
Let's get into that game. The hubbub around Mapletron. If you haven't caught on yet, that is the Steelers' rookie wide receiver Chase Claypool. He's approximately 6'8" and runs a 3.8 40 and has a 65-inch vertical jump and 2-foot wide hands. And he scored 4 touchdowns against the Philadelphia Eagles on Sunday, 3 of which receiving and 1 rushing on a little jet sweep action.
He's so good. Oh my gosh. So they weren't spectacular. Joey doesn't think they're spectacular. Well, here's why they were spectacular. A, they involve motion in many cases, which the Steelers were very slow to add to their offense while the rest of the NFL was innovating and turning into a high flying, rootin' tootin', scoring bunch of cool dudes, the Steelers were hanging back. They were hanging back, doing their thing, saying we can win without that. Turns out, even with two of the best skill players in the NFL, couldn't average 30 points a game, which is not that hard for a lot of good offenses these days. So they had some learning to do. They brought in a guy named Matt Canada. Who knew? Who knew? We're going to be talking about Canada all this
Do you
time.
know where he came from?
Not Canada. Not the point.
He
I believe he
interned.
came, yeah, Maryland. Yeah, because he coached the rookie, McFarland. So the motion was a big deal. Creativity and play calling was a big deal. One of those plays was a quad stack. Who knew you could put four wide receivers in a diamond on one side of the formation? And Roethlisberger had never thrown it to him in practice before. He always threw it to Ebron. But the way it was lined up, went to Chase, and he was ready. Big deal. That's why it's spectacular. The other one, not spectacular because I don't remember it. But the final one, spectacular. And I'll tell you why. Because later in the week, after the win, Eagles coaches are all singing Ben's praises. Because you know what happened at the line of scrimmage on the final touchdown? Ben Roethlisberger made a pre-snap read, Joey. He's
Ooh.
he's a genius. He's a genius. So they're running this play because they thought that the Eagles were going to blitz because they'd given that look on the same formation earlier, and they're going to give a quick little out to Ray McLeod, who's awesome, and we knew that going in. But the Eagles were in a regular cover too. Ben Roethlisberger deciphered it, called a new play at the line of scrimmage. Ray and Chase were both put into positions they'd never been before in practice. They both and everyone executed the play perfectly, and that left, and this is usually the Steelers defense's job, Chase Claypool one-on-one with a linebacker. And you know what happens when you're 6'8" and you run a 3.8 40 and you have 2 foot hands?
You
You make
murder an
linebackers
eagle.
look stupid. Yep. And he scored an easy touchdown because, and you heard it here first, Ben Roethlisberger is a genius.
You definitely heard that here first. You definitely never heard that said anywhere else on the internet.
Do you want to say it out loud, Joey? Do you want to
No.
say it?
I will say that two of those touchdowns I will credit to Chase Claypool. And the other two, it's just happenstance that he's the guy that got the number called. You even admitted that for some reason the Steelers were practicing throwing a screen to Eric Ebron in that
No. It's that the
quad
way they lined up,
formation.
Ebron's part of the route was open. So it wasn't that Ebron lined up there and got the screen. It was just the way the defense lined up.
That's good. Basically, in a lot of that action stuff, to me, McLeod, Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool are interchangeable. And it just
Agreed.
happened to be Claypool's day on the goal line and some of that stuff, which is good. I mean,
Look,
4 touchdowns.
look, Joey, when you get 7 catches for 110 yards and you score 3 receiving touchdowns and 1 rushing, you probably come to this podcast thinking, oh, we're going to talk about all Chase Claypool's highlights that I've already seen 100 times, and I can't wait to see him 100 more. No. I'm going to tell you about the 2 catches that didn't count on Chase Claypool's stat sheet in this game. The first one, and don't ask me exactly when it happened in the game. I think it might have been the second quarter. He gets like, what do you think, 25, 30-yard pass to the sideline, and he, because of an Eagles challenge, has a catch taken away because he was barely not able to tap his second toe because the Eagles defender who was falling down leg happened to be between his foot and the ground. Glorious sideline catch and body control. And it was just like he was doing all the right stuff. And I think like 6, 7 out of 10 times he comes down with that. It's all just about like where the defender happens to be in the way. Fantastic catch. No yards, no catch for that play. Good challenge by the Eagles. Good job, right? Then in the fourth quarter, and no one's going to talk about this because they're too busy talking about Ebron fumbling like 2 plays later. Ben Roethlisberger throws a back shoulder to Chase Claypool, who catches it, hand fights a little bit with the DB, catches it, and then runs the DB over and sprints 30 yards for a touchdown. That play is called back because of a ticky-tacky offensive PI. So that's like 2 catches and 70 more yards and a touchdown that aren't on Chase Claypool's stat sheet. They show the body control, the contested catching, the physicality after the catch, that easy long stride and speed. This guy's a stud. He's a hero. Mapletron's here to stay. You probably had 6 nightmares about him this week already.
Nope. Nope.
They're coming.
I mean,
they're coming.
From what I can tell, and I don't even know his first name, Fulgham is Chase Claypool, just without the touchdowns.
Travis is his first name.
And I thought Trey.
I thought he was a backup tight end until I watched the game, and I was regular.
I thought he was a tight end too, because we were talking about him on Sunday, and someone said that he was a tight end, and then I was watching the game back, and he was wearing number 13, and I was like,
that's what got me too.
Huh.
I think I figured it out. It's because his name is Travis Fulgham, and the Packers tight end is named like Fungum, that got all those touchdowns with Aaron Rodgers. So I think I got them mixed up. I think that's what happened to me. And you better watch out. We're going to talk more about him later, but he is a threat. He's a threat whether Marlon Humphrey's on him, Marcus Peters, we'll get into it. He owned the Steelers, and I was very inclined to get very upset with the secondary. My good friends at Steelers Depot did some tape breakdown, and it turns out like a lot of those catches were contested. Like he was just having a really good game. Like now at the end of the second half, when the Steelers defense was doing their thing, giving up a really quick, easy touchdown almost, like he broke wide open on the left sideline, and thank God Carson Wentz didn't see him, because it was an easy touchdown with like 4 seconds left, but instead he threw a different 30-yard pass and the clock ran out.
They ran out, yeah.
And then in the third quarter, when they started making their comeback, he had like 7 catches for 80 of his 150 yards, and somehow in the red zone, the Steelers like lost track of him for like a wide open touchdown. It's like, dude, this is the only guy doing anything right now. He's the only guy, and we've never heard of him. So you got to be able to guard him. Like, you at least got to find him. So that was frustrating. Yes, it is frustrating when a no-name wide receiver accounts for half of a quarterback's completions and 150 yards and multiple touchdowns. But we're not focused on that because he was outshined by our boy, Mapletron. Thank God. You're probably not particularly concerned about the Steelers, because every week we talk about how the Steelers secondary is going to slowly improve. And the only thing they improve on doing is making me come up with new ways to talk about how they can't play zone defense. They just can't communicate. They can't. I don't know what's going on. It's not great. It's statistically, they're still one of the top defenses. They just are. Like, they even in passing metrics, it's wild. I don't know how they work it, because by the eye test, it doesn't appear that they guard people half the time.
I don't know how they've managed to slow down Daniel Jones, Drew Lock, Jeff Driscoll,
Deshaun Watson,
whatever other schlubs they've played.
Deshaun Watson. Yeah. Basically MVP Carson Wentz.
Yeah.
Basically 13-week MVP Carson Wentz.
Yeah.
MVP of a Super Bowl winning team, Carson Wentz.
Yep.
So, I mean,
6 touchdowns, 9 interceptions this year, Carson Wentz.
Yeah. I don't have a lot. This game was a game of runs. The Steelers dominated the beginning of the second half to take a big lead, and then they gave up like 2 straight touchdown drives and a 2-point version to basically give it all away, and then they, they dominated again at the end, finishing at 38-29. I do want to call one play into question, because Frank Reich, he's the Eagles coach, right? He's not the one that went to Indianapolis. Doug Peterson. I get him mixed up. Doug Peterson, whatever. They're both offensive geniuses.
Same tree. They were both on the Super Bowl staff.
Well, here's some offensive genius. Maybe you can explain to me the genius because I can't quite wrap my head around it. 4th down and 20, game on the line. Eagles run, play action. Did you notice that?
No,
You notice the fake handoff before Carson Wentz threw that interception? How
that's the
many people
trick,
you?
man. That's the
How many
trick
people
with the
you?
analytics. You know,
you, you think
um,
any of the linebackers bid on that?
on Tuesday Night Football, uh, kicker, retired kicker Jay Feely tried to sound smart and started talking about the Rule of 53. Have you heard of the Rule of 53?
Only when I heard Warren Sharp make fun of him for saying that it matters
Yep. And I
or
think
that it's causal.
what were we talking about? Oh, the play action. So the analytics say that like play action is more successful, and it gets into the correlation versus causation debate of like, well, yeah, play action's more successful when it's used properly, situationally.
Yeah, 4th and 20 with like a minute and 40 seconds
Yeah.
left in the game, down 9. Not great. I'm surprised you didn't take time to talk about Miles Sanders' 74-yard touchdown run.
I didn't because it's easily rebutted, and
Yeah, the Steelers had like 9 guys that could have made that tackle and just totally dropped the ball. And if you're interested, he had one run for 74 yards and he finished with 11 for 80.
yeah,
So the Steelers' run defense is good. They fouled up on a play, and Miles Sanders, who I talked about last week as being a dangerous player, proved it. Miss a tackle, he runs faster than you. So respect to Miles Sanders. He broke a Mike Hilton tackle. Doesn't happen very often, even though he's a little slot cornerback. He leads the Steelers team in tackles, so he's a good tackler. He gets it done, but not that play. Miles Sanders was the better man. 74-yard touchdown, finished with 80 in 10 more tries. So I still respect the Steelers' effort. Obviously, anytime you are playing against a guy with that sort of speed, you just can't miss. You can't have those misses. Otherwise, you get points. So that was an unfortunate play. Pretty frustrating, but came out on top 38-29, undefeated, atop the AFC North and atop the AFC.
yeah, and 9 point win is like a trillion point win for the Steelers team.
Yep. I had proposed that they'd be up by 13 and get a touchdown and a 2-point conversion scored on them at the end to miss the spread. They did not. So Steelers have once again raised the bar on even
Yeah,
my very high standards of excellence.
excellence. Yep.
So we're
Glad
very
we're on the
proud of
same
them.
page.
We are very proud of them. And yeah, that's basically all I got. It was a fun win. I mean, everyone likes seeing their young players do well. So this is all about Chase.
Yeah, yeah, it's like you turn around and in the blink of an eye. So like last year, the last couple years really. So like Deontay kind of came on at the end of last year, and James Washington like maybe a little to a lesser extent last season. And so like for the last couple years since Antonio Brown left, it's been like, oh, like is Juju for real and this and that, and like you blink and the Steelers draft really well, and now you can have Deontay and Claypool and Washington, and Juju can go back to his home inside, and it's like, ugh, shit.
Yeah. And like if you want to try and like troll it, you could say like, well, none of those guys are AB, none of those guys are
Well, yeah,
Julio
of
Jones,
course.
none of those guys are that level. And that is definitely true at this point. But the thing is that they all do stuff pretty darn like at some sort of maybe not elite, but really high level. And the Steelers basically don't care who you guard. Like, I mean, they have 4 legitimate starters
Yeah,
that can break you down and win. James Washington's probably the least, but he's like a contested catch, like nightmare. So he's probably the one of the four that you maybe leave alone if you can. But good
Yeah,
luck.
I feel like he's the least dynamic, um, from like, I guess like an athleticism standpoint. But on a deep ball, like
Yeah, he had a
he's just as
crazy,
good as any.
yeah, crazy. I think take the lead or game-winning touchdown catch against the Browns last year, go over the top of the defender, and he's a good fourth option. I'll say that with confidence.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well let's move on down across the Mason Dixon line. Yep, this game was in Baltimore, right? Yep, into Maryland, the Big Crab Cake. The Ravens hosted hot young sensation Joey Covers, fourth quarter comebacks, slinging the rock, Joe Mixon coming off of a career game, and Wink Martindale put him in a pretzel, basically.
He was a little bamboozled.
Yeah.
Look, he's gonna be fine, but there's no doubt about it. The Ravens defense. I have to admit, I'm a little surprised. And tell me if you saw this more than I did, because I only had time to watch the game after the fact and condensed, so it was over a short
Yeah.
period of time. I didn't I didn't notice them running much of the spread. I saw Mixon in the backfield a lot. And do you think that that contributed with the Ravens' ability to do um, fun things? I mean, I know that they did apparently a double outside corner blitz, so both of the furthest out guys blitzed at the same time. Which, like, I mean, if you do that to Ben Roethlisberger,
Yeah.
he's going to throw a touchdown. If you do it to almost anybody, like, it's crazy. You don't do that. So he was doing all sorts of crazy stuff. It might not have mattered what they did. I was surprised that I just thought he might be able to find the open man short. But yeah, he couldn't.
Yeah, I think it got to the point where he got to the point of no return. Um, where like it started kind of slow. It was like a slow leak for a
Yeah.
little while, and then like sack fumbles started happening, and then AJ Green leaves the game, and like Wink had him off balance, and it was, yeah, it was just too much.
And even when they seemed to be moving the ball, because like it's not like he was just like bamboozled all the time. Like he made some good
Yeah,
plays, and they moved the ball like multiple times, like into the Ravens side of the field. Generally not far past the 50, but they got going, and then it would just be like a fumble or an interception or a, they just like they just couldn't finish a drive. Like
yeah,
the Ravens defense just always had the exact right thing at the right time to stop it. It
yeah,
was a from the Ravens defensive side of things, it was exactly the medicine you needed and you wanted to see against a rookie with your defensive coordinator. That's kind of what you expect.
yeah. We had another fruit punch.
Dude,
Um,
what the fuck? Like, is he gonna do it every week?
it's freaking
Like,
crazy, right? It's
he's
like,
done it.
oh.
He's done it at least the last 3 weeks,
And
but
it
I
was
want to
on
say four.
the near side of the field, and so I didn't even think it was him when it first happened. Like I thought it was Peters, and I was like, oh, like it's infectious. Everybody's the Ravens, especially when they get ahead, and we've talked about them like bullying teams on defense. They did it to the Texans, like they did it to the Browns, but they hunt that ball, and they were doing it, especially with a big lead against Cincinnati. They were doing it a lot to ball carriers.
Yeah, it's kind of like amazing to me that it's happened. I mean, like, look, I get it. Marlon Humphrey's strong and all this stuff, but it's like, dude, he's done it. If he's done it 3 weeks in a row, what else are you thinking about as a
Yeah, you
receiver?
have to
If he's
scout
the
it,
one,
right?
like, I don't know if it was last week or the week before, but There's one where Marlon Humphrey came in off of like a zone. So the receiver was turned away from him and maybe didn't know he was the one coming.
Yeah,
That's
that
pretty
was against
forgivable.
Houston. He got him from
Yeah.
behind, kind of. Yeah.
Yeah. But in like man coverage and he's tackling you, like everything that you've watched on tape is that Marlon Humphrey doesn't consider the ball in your possession ever.
Yeah.
Like that's how he makes his money.
Yeah.
We talked about it at the end of last year. He rarely gets in the way of a pass. He takes the ball out of your hands as you're going to the ground. Like that is his MO. Like I guess he's just that much stronger. Like I don't know. I mean, like what else can it be? Like everyone knows. I know. I know.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
it's
it's
crazy.
great. And we failed to mention in the Steelers game, it should be obvious to everybody. Chase Claypool was the AFC Offensive Player of the Week.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
just an
anytime you
AFC.
score 4 touchdowns, like um, this game featured the AFC Defensive Player of the Week, Patrick Queen. So Marlon Humphrey's punch out, Patrick Queen picked it up and took it to the house. He
Yes.
also had a strip sack and recovered his own fumble forced um, on former college teammate and uh, oh man, I just had a big old brain fart. Also national champion in college.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, Marcus Peters had an interception. Like everything was going.
And a sack.
Jalen
A
Ferguson was
sack.
involved, not only
Every
in the pass rush but in coverage. Man,
every Ravens defensive back had a sack
yeah.
or corner.
In the Ravens Wired episode, Humphrey came to the sideline after the Marcus Peters sack and said, "Wink, send me." And then the next drive, Wink Martindale obliged, and and Humphrey got his sack too. So yeah, they were having fun out there with it. It was to the point where they were just doing whatever they wanted on defense, which was good because
Yeah, I'm getting nauseous. Let's talk about something I can enjoy a little bit.
after halftime, um, I didn't even take any notes after halftime. The defense dominated, and the offense kind of just really didn't do anything. Um,
Dude,
the Ravens fans got, myself included, got spoiled last year by how efficient and effective the Ravens offense is. Um, I'm pretty sure it was like historic. Um, and it's just not something that you could expect. I mean, the Ravens won this game 27-3, and it was like, eh. And it's kind of been like that for a couple weeks in a row, other than that awful Kansas City game that I'd like to forget about. Basically, everything since the Browns game has just been kind of ho hum. Um, I have rationalized it to myself though, and I think I'm good to go. So I'll get your take on it, and then I'll give you what's really happening.
all right. Here is what I'm hearing the scuttlebutt. There's two ways of looking at Lamar right now. One is that he is regressing. He is legitimately regressing in the passing game. And two, it's like, look, it's fine. They're trying new things out. They're doing whatever. I don't know. Maybe you can tell me what two is. This is what I observed in the game. In the first half, Jesse Bates himself missed three potential interceptions. One in which, let me see if I can catch this. He was like a robber safety, kind of dropped low into the middle, and he dove in front of a throw to Andrews, and like he had it. He just wasn't able to complete the catch. Um, Another one on the sideline to Andrews, where Andrews actually had to pull it out of his arms as he because Lamar lobbed it up and Jesse Bates had front position on the ball. And then he tried to undercut Boyle on a comeback route, like a hook where he was coming back to the ball and he wasn't able to quite hold it. Darius Phillips dropped an interception on a unblocked pass rush. And then later
Yeah.
that drive, Logan Wilson actually got an interception,
He
which I
dropped
wouldn't
an
attribute
interception
really
on
to
the
much.
next drive. Logan Wilson did.
Yeah, and but he got one on a deflection. And then in the second half, Wilson and Davis Gaither dropped interceptions. So I'm talking like legitimately six
Yeah.
interceptions we're talking
But
here.
I mean
Like,
that hasn't been the story of Lamar's season though. Like this was a very sloppy game from him. He's had a very high completion percentage. He's been very much taking care of the football. Like it's not just like a bunch of interception luck that he's had so far this year. But yeah, this game was bad, and if I don't know what it was. If he was just careless because it's the Bengals and they should stomp the Bengals, and um, yeah, I don't I think it's too soon to call it regression. Um, I
so you're
think
confident.
I think the Ravens are very obviously not running the ball as much. They're not doing the same things that gave them success last year. They're not running a bunch of read option plays, and so I think some of that will come into form. Even against Kansas City, they didn't, and we can talk about Kansas City on like a bye week or sometime. But I have some thoughts on, in hindsight, what happened in the Kansas City game, and basically hubris on Wink Martindale's part. But
I would love to do a special episode in which all we talk about is a Ravens loss. So you've got yourself a date.
it's not a whole episode worth, but um, yeah, I think he just got a little careless. But on the year as a whole, uh, there hasn't been one game where I've been satisfied that they're like committing to the run. Like that was their identity last year, and they haven't really established an identity this year. Uh, so I'd
Yeah.
like to see Dobbins get more carries. Like I just want them to assert the run the way that they did last year, because their averages are fine on the run, and they ran for 160 yards against the Bengals. So it's not like
Right.
it wasn't effective. So I think that
So
there's a little bit of them trying some new things, Duvernay, and they're trying to get him involved a little bit more. They had some trickeration to him, and he caught a couple passes, and the whole skill position, other than like Ingram and Snead, it's all young guys still. So I don't know. We'll see.
So it's pretty well established that you like to cover up your nerdiness with your powerlifting and your powerlifting Instagram account. You're a celebrator of the numbers and the advanced analytics. So when you look at the Ravens and their lack of identity, and do you just trust the statistics which say like, yes, their yards per carry is the same or better? They're still running for 100 whatever yards a game. Lamar is still has a
No,
lot of
no,
the
I'm not
numbers look
happy
good.
with,
Or do you?
like, it
Okay.
should be more than 160 yards. I almost feel like they're in like an analytics uh like dilemma almost, because they still, even though they haven't committed to it, when they do run, they still run the ball remarkably effectively. Like J.K. Dobbins had one carry, and it was for like 30 something yards. Like they have the ability to run. They haven't really used the read option as like a weapon this year, um, not consistently, and but like all of the modern analytics tell you like running on first down is a waste. Like you should be passing on first down. Like it's a traditional view to run on first down, but like I feel like the Ravens can't succumb to that. I don't know. I I also want Lamar to develop as a passer, and like I want Lamar to emerge as like this incredible passer. I just don't know if like the Ravens offense is ready for that yet. Like the receivers haven't emerged yet, and like there's no reason not to run the ball, and I feel like maybe the Ravens are just holding on. It's like a break in case of emergency type of thing where they're waiting until the end of the towards the end of the season to really like let it rip with the run game. Maybe it's
Well,
wishful
it's,
thinking.
I mean, you it makes sense that a team that has the expectations they have of the playoffs and has lost in the playoffs last 2 years the way they have would think like we need to use this regular season to get to a point where we're comfortable changing our identity if we get into a pinch. Um, so I mean, like they say, and it usually is defense, right? Where it's like when you get in the playoffs, there's always going to be a game where you have to kind of win left-handed. Um,
Yeah.
and so you could make the case as a hopeful mental gymnast like the Ravens are practicing writing with their left hand right now.
Yeah, I mean, and not even so much as that is like, especially the opponents, I'm especially the Redskins and the Bengals. Like, you know that you're better than these teams, and like you're up 3 scores. Like, that's why not like try things and see what works and do some of that. And I feel like specifically like the Patriots get the benefit of the doubt a lot of times early in seasons when the second half of Belichick and Brady where they'd put out a fucking stinker on prime time and everybody would just be like, well, by December, like it'll be totally different anyways and they'll be fine. And like I just feel like, and part of it is maybe the Ravens haven't earned it. Like I'll cede that. Like, but this is a really good coaching staff, and they don't have the track record that the Patriots have. But I think it's reasonable to like give them a little bit of like give them time to figure it out. There's no preseason. Like they're trying to add a bunch of pieces into the offense. They've got rookies that are trying to be like legit contributors, and
Yeah, I get it. Not
I'm taking the
everybody
patient
is.
approach. We're talking about them like they're dead and they're in this like offensive like apocalypse and they're 4-1 and like the
Yeah.
third highest scoring team in the league. So
Speaking of dead and apocalypse, would you say that Justin Tucker is done or finished after missing his first kick of the year?
it was like a 60-yard kick. I'm not worried about it.
Okay, just checking, just checking. I'm saying done. I'm saying he's done.
That's good.
Um,
Maybe if he takes the Chris Boswell route and just melts down for the rest of the season.
Totally plausible. Totally plausible. Um, Last thing I wanted to do is a little Darius Phillips check-in. He had a nice little game against the Ravens. I was going to ask you, I didn't notice him really being challenged in coverage.
No,
So,
nobody was really challenged down the field that wasn't a linebacker or a safety
yeah.
in this whole game, like even with Hollywood. So
I obviously mentioned the near pick six that he had on the contested blitz there, and I was so ready to celebrate that. You know how I love a big moment, big splash play for my boy Darius Phillips. I was very excited. So thankfully, my friends at the Locked On Bengals podcast brought me some statistics because I'm not going to look that stuff up myself. Darius Phillips blitzed 7 times against the Ravens, 5 of which resulted in a play breakup. So not a guy that you necessarily think of working behind the line of scrimmage, but proved to be a successful use of his talents, and kind of a cool, obviously he probably didn't feel very good after the game, but he is a legitimate player. He's not just a joke that we like because we watched him in the preseason. Like, he is a legitimate starting cornerback that can play outside or in the slot. and he's developing a nice little tool set that I think if he can stay healthy, he's we're going to keep talking about him.
Yeah, and that is from a Ravens lens. That is something that teams are doing a lot more to Lamar is blitzing smaller, faster guys because it's just straight up harder for him to evade those guys. They got better lateral quickness, and it's a lot more difficult than a guy who has a dump truck ass and weighs 350 pounds. like,
Yeah.
it's just how it
Although
is.
he's kind of gone down to everybody this year a little bit. You know, teams that have collapsed the pocket, the
Yeah.
big guys have been able to rush the middle. So it's going to be interesting. And I we'll talk more about pass rush and Lamar shortly. Should we move on to the next game? This
Yeah.
was a fun one. This is the game of the week.
Yeah.
Colts, Browns. AFC North went 3-1 this week. Browns defeat the Colts 32-23. Um, I would like to take a moment to welcome the Browns and their fans and their families to the culture of victory. And the Patriots are best known for the culture of victory. They get things like rules changed in order to help them win. The tuck rule. They have a famous culture of victory. Things just happen. Then they have good players and good coaches. They say they make their own luck. Maybe they do. Maybe that's what they're doing with the cameras at other teams' practices. I don't know how it works. I don't know how it works. But the Browns really today entered what I'm going to call the culture of victory. And I'm going to start with the first play. Kareem Hunt runs the ball, loses the ball, and the Colts challenge the play. It might not have been the first play of the game, but I think it was the first play from scrimmage of the game. Now, every replay that I saw, Kareem Hunt never touched the ground. But you know what happened? The ball, it just bounced their way. They get that back. And I think they scored a field goal on that drive.
Mm-hmm.
They get the ball back, score a field goal. But it would have been a short field. The Colts would have had the ball immediately at like the Browns 25. But instead, they get the ball back. Then, in the second quarter, let me see if I can find it. Frank Reich loses his second challenge. Frank Reich blows both of his challenges in the first half. Right? Blows it. And this one wasn't like unjustified. It was like a really nice, I want to say Hollywood Higgins catch. No, it was a deep catch, and it was like bobbled, but it like bounced off his leg or his arm was under it. So it was a good uphold by the refs. I'm not gonna, rip on the refs twice yet. So 2 challenges lost, and then the game ends the way it started. The Browns kick a field goal at the end of the game. You know what it does? It hits that upright, bounces in,
Doinks in.
bounces in, and that is what happens to winners. And I may have been too hard on the Browns. Because the Colts are not a bad team. They're generally a well-coached team. But when you start seeing these things happen, the woo-woo of victory is upon them. They are officially a threat to the other teams that already have that woo-woo in the AFC North, and that would be the Steelers and the Ravens. So that's tough. That's tough. When the Browns establish the woo-woo of victory in a win over a good team, I have to have some respect for that.
Yep. Yeah. Cleveland. This is what you've been waiting for. This game, specifically the first half, because Baker started to like do Browns things in the second half. And it seemed like both teams were basically playing hot potato with the win. But in the first half, you had play action, you had creative screen action, you had Baker rolling out, you had Odell throwing passes to Hooper, like
that was nice.
And this offense is beautiful, even without Nick Chubb. Like, Kareem Hunt was a threat running the ball. Kareem Hunt caught a touchdown on a pretty nice catch in the end zone. Like,
Let
it's it's pretty
let's pause
cool.
that.
What's that?
Let's pause that. Kareem
Yeah.
Hunt's touchdown, because Baker Mayfield, before he did Baker Mayfield Browns things, on that play, the play broke down, the pocket started to collapse. And what's very important here is what Baker did not do. He did not panic and roll to the right. He stepped up into the pocket. He read the field, kept his eyes up, people, kept them up, and he found Kareem Hunt in the back of the end zone. That is a polished professional quarterback play. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're good. Um, it's a luxury when you can lose uh, a leading rusher and you have another guy that led the league in rushing the year prior to just step up in his place. The run game's still formidable. The offensive line, with the two young tackles, like having Wills play on the left side, like this team will get up in your shit in the run game, and they love it. And all offensive linemen love it. Like let's be real, just but they've been playing very very well. Odell once again involved early in the game, engaged. Hooper's starting to get involved. It's like the Browns are for real. The big Achilles heel of the Browns is their secondary. Good news for the Browns is that Phillip Rivers is holding the Colts back, and so they weren't really exploited how they have been by some other teams this year.
Yeah. The other elephant in the room that I should probably address is that I have been, how should I say this? I've been hard on Myles
Rude.
Garrett. I've been hard on Myles Garrett. A lot of people, not all people that watch football with the depth of analysis that I do, but a lot of people are calling him a defensive player of the year candidate. Now,
I'm offended by that, by the way.
There's a lot of ways to interpret his play. I know that the left tackle on the Colts, I don't know his first name, Clark, he would interpret Myles Garrett's play as much better than his. Because Myles, I should have done more research on the Colts tackles. I did not. And I don't know why they didn't just leave him on the right side, because he didn't really do anything from the left side. But when he was lined up on that left tackle, oh my Lord, it was ugly. It was really, really ugly. And Myles Garrett continued to do really good stuff in terms of making quarterbacks fear for their lives. And that culminated in the fourth quarter when Myles Garrett bulldozed Clark probably to whatever the minor league of the NFL is. And Phillip Rivers intentional grounded them into a safety. So Myles Garrett, depending on what sort of made up stats people use, some people are crediting him for like 8 caused turnovers or something like that at this point. A safety from intentional grounding won't ever be officially credited to Myles Garrett. But let us all assure you, if you didn't watch the game, he is the reason it happened. When he is running full speed at you with a 300-pound man barely slowing him down. And you ever see those old movies where the evil doer, the silent movies with just the music dubbed over them, ties the lady to the train tracks and she's like screaming as the train's coming? I think that's what Phillip Rivers felt like at that moment. Like he was
tied to the train tracks by his feet.
That is his level of mobility.
Yeah.
So look, I know that Myles Garrett took my comments personally and he came out and played his best. But I'm not done being hard on Myles Garrett. Like, I expect him to win all the time, and I'm still noticing that he requires catering to. He has to be given the easiest matchup on the line, and they move him all around. They don't move him around necessarily because he can do anything to anyone. They move him around because they have to find the weakest link, and he's a diva. He needs those stats, right? Sheldon Richardson's doing this stuff from the middle. He doesn't care. He doesn't care. You can put everybody on him. He disrupts everything. Myles Garrett, I expect more. I know you're doing a lot. I know you've got a lot of people in the media on your side. I'm not one of them yet. I expect more. Not next week, but it probably, we'll get into it, but expect him to give you more next week.
This most assuredly has nothing to do with what happened at Cleveland last year.
No, not at all.
Not
Dude,
even
I'm watching the tape. Are you watching what I'm watching? Like, look, this was his best performance. It was. He dominated that dude. He dominated that Clark guy. He owned him. But in my opinion, he didn't dominate anyone he played, and that hasn't happened yet this year. Like, the best that he has looked in a game is when he has been who was it? The Cowboys, that he was an undrafted rookie. Dude, he's Myles Garrett. Like, if he doesn't make that guy look like a chump, I'm not even gonna bother making fun of him because it's so embarrassing. Like, so I just don't. He hasn't had a moment like Cam Hayward, where Cam Hayward bulldozed Quentin Nelson into Jacoby Brissett. Like, he hasn't owned high level competition like his reputation would say that he should. And I'm waiting and I'm watching.
All right,
if you want to win Defensive Player of the Year, you're better than everybody. You're Aaron Donald.
Put your nuts in the C gap, Myles Garrett.
I'm watching.
All right. Any other notes on Browns Colts? Oh, I have one other note. I don't know how Andrew Sandejo still has a fucking job after watching him all year long. Here's a fun little game. And I think I mentioned this game last week also. Every time a deep ball is given up or a big play in the passing game by the Browns, look who the closest Browns defender is. And if it's number 23, take a shot.
I haven't noticed it as much, and I think it's obvious. It's because I'm like really watching Myles Garrett like all the time. But I love that you are paying attention to the secondary, because we both have, and this is really a testament to each of our character. Like, I'm going to put myself up against the best. Like, I am going to challenge Myles Garrett's play. And that's the Steelers guy in me, right? Like, I am a champion, and I want to see the champions, and I want to see, we're going to go head to head. You are going up against a 10-year vet who's maybe a journeyman, maybe a little bit past his prime. I get it, Joey. You're picking on him. You're picking on Sandejo. Don't you have something better to do?
No.
The answer is no. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. Redwine did get an interception, Sheldrick Redwine. So they are rogue.
Don't be fooled.
Yeah, I know, but he got this. Fill in the stat sheet though.
Yeah. If only there was a guy who was like, say, on the Seahawks practice squad who has played in this secondary before, whose name rhymed with Schmandel, and they could just get rid of Sandejo and plug him in there. That'd be great.
Look, that's a locker room concern. We can't be tampering with the chemistry and the culture. It's the
fragile chemistry of the Browns. Yeah.
Oh well, it's fragile. Let's be honest with ourselves. They might have gotten the winning woo woo, but it is just barely lifted over them. It is in no way permanent at this point. Yeah. And we'll certainly get an idea of how permanent it is next week.
We sure will.
Next
Sunday
week
at 1 o'clock.
1 p.m.
in the big ketchup bottle.
The big ketchup bottle with upwards of 12,000 fans.
Ooh!
In attendance. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. pandemic be darned.
They're going to be singing fucking Renegade at the end of the third quarter. Oh,
The
man.
Browns and the Steelers will meet for the 134th time. Joey, in all of those 134 meetings, do you know how many of them have occurred when each team had a greater than 800 winning percentage?
Oh, God. This is the Browns' fault, but it's not many. 134 meetings. 18.
2.
Oh, the Browns
And
are
the
so bad. That's why.
and the last, but here's the thing: the last time was 1979, which is also the last time the Steelers started a season 4-0. So it's been. I know that it's obvious for the video watchers, but for people to listen on the radio, I'm a young man. I wasn't even alive. I wasn't even alive the last time all this happened. This is a big game, folks. It's a big game. The AFC North has an undefeated team and 2 one-loss teams. 2 of them are meeting, and it is going to be a big deal. And the Browns, they're feeling it. They're feeling it. They beat the Cowboys. They beat the Colts. Now, you can critique those wins, and I feel like this year there's been a lot of critiquing. I feel like there's like 4 good teams, and unless you beat one of those, your wins don't count. It's happened to the Steelers. It's happened to everybody. So, like, here's the deal. Beating the...
I mean, what's happened to the Steelers hasn't exactly happened to everybody, but...
Dude, the Steelers handled the Eagles, who are going to win that division. The Steelers have already beaten a division winner this year. What do you want? What do you want?
All right. So just for the information of everybody, I'm just going to put a number out into, and I'm not going to say anything about it. I'm just going to state that the lowest opponent winning percentage in the AFC belongs to the Steelers. It's .184. And the next lowest belongs to, I think, the Titans. And it's .368, which, if you're doing the math in your head, is exactly double. So it's not really close.
Look, you're a nerd. Do some math for me. Add the Titans record.
Add
to
1
that,
plus 1 plus 1 plus 1.
Add all the Titans wins to that, because the Steelers beat them so bad that they wouldn't even take the field. What about that?
Yeah.
So that brings it up. That brings it up to comfortably into the 3s. Look, let's focus on the task at hand. We don't want to spend too much time dilly-dallying. We've got literally first place team in the AFC playing possibly the second place team in the AFC basically right now. What's going on? I mean, the Ravens are competing for the wild card right now with this team. So you have to decide who to root for. So what do you think? What's the keys? You got any keys? You got any? I got some keys. I got stuff, but I don't want to.
I think both secondaries are going to have long days. Cleveland's because of a lack of talent in the secondary outside of like Denzel Ward. Terrence Mitchell's been playing pretty well, but the back end, oof. And Pittsburgh, I think when Cleveland has the ball, the disparity is probably similar, but it's not because of lack of talent on Pittsburgh's side. It's because of the surplus of talent in the Cleveland side. OBJ and Jarvis, like, still probably the best wide receiver tandem in the league. Julio and Calvin Ridley can be argued, but it's close. And the Steelers have not truly been tested by a good offense yet this year, and we're gonna see it. So it's the biggest test of the season for both of these teams. Well, Cleveland failed their first test of the year in week 1 pretty miserably.
Sure. I
But
mean, I I think that the way that Cleveland has played the last 2 weeks, you would be foolish to assume that you're going to see a similar performance from Cleveland the second time you play them.
yeah,
Um, I agree that the secondary is going to struggle. The thing that I think could help them is, and the Steelers don't do this a lot, but if they're able to jump out to a quick lead, especially if it's a multi-score lead, they could limit some of the really clever things Cleveland is doing with the play action because they could sit on that stuff a little bit. Um, but the bottom line is the secondary hasn't been great, and as you said, Jarvis and Odell, and frankly Austin Hooper and the rookie
yeah,
Harrison Bryant, and Higgins. Higgins can catch a deep ball. You know, if they're
yeah.
not minding their P's and Q's, they'll go catch a touchdown. Like these guys are all capable, and Joku's fine. Um, I think that Cleveland's offensive line is so good right now, and here's this. You like throwing numbers out there, right? Oh, point one, blah, 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 blah. Nice numbers, Joey. Here's a number. The Steelers have the most sacks in that NFL. Number one. And they've played one less game than almost every other team. How's that? How's that for numbers? They have 4 players with 3 or more sacks. No other team has more than 2. This
Yeah,
team
young and young,
is
inexperienced quarterbacks are known for getting the ball out quickly, and Deshaun Watson doesn't take many sacks, hardly ever.
this team has finished with over 50 sacks basically the last 5 years, and they're on pace for 80 right now. So yes, they will probably regress somewhat to the mean. My point is that Cleveland's O-line is going to face its biggest test. And Pittsburgh, those 4 guys, they're the 2 that you expect. Dupree and Watt.
Yep.
Outside, right? No worries. Cleveland has 2 of the top 20 tackles in the NFL in pass, rush defense. But then there's also to it. Run right up the middle. But then the 4th one,
Mike Hilton.
Mike Hilton. They're coming from every which way. They're going to challenge the offensive line. I'm not going to promise that they'll win that matchup. Cleveland has a really good offensive line. Their best graded player is their right guard, Teller, and he may not play. So that'll be interesting to track. It's going to be a great matchup. If you are able to watch football without focusing on the ball, this is a good time to do it because this is just strength versus strength. It's going to be really, really good football being played on the line when the Steelers defense and the Browns offense is out there. And the other thing I'd say is that we spent a lot of time in the offseason talking about the Steelers not having a nose tackle. I think they just didn't realize they did have a nose tackle. Tyson Alualu didn't even know how good he was. Here's some numbers. You love numbers. I'm going to give you another number. Joey, you're so excited about these numbers. Teams average 0.8 yards per rush when Tyson Alualu is on the field. That's not good. It's really not good. So, again, strength versus strength. Just because Chubb is hurt doesn't mean the Browns don't want to run the ball. And Kareem Hunt's good and the offensive line is good. So this is going to be like AFC North football, I think. I think that, yeah, the Browns like to do trickeration and stuff, but I kind of also think that they're going to be like, we want to bully you. And the Steelers obviously are going to be like, we want to bully you. And I think it might get a little saucy in the trenches,
Oh,
Joey.
it's going. Yeah, of course. Myles Garrett's going to be out there when the Browns are out there. Like, this game is going to get chippy.
Well, that's the other side, and
yeah.
And if you want to go the other side, the Steelers they might be a little bit of a mess. Pouncey hasn't really been practicing much this week. He had, I don't know, something. It seems like it's minor. I think an ankle. And DeCastro went out last week, and he's their best lineman, right guard. it looks like the rookie Kevin Dotson. He's going to be back out there probably. So he's played well, but now isn't exactly the time for half-heartedly saying he's played well. Like we need all the best stuff. We need a repeat of the
The
Alabama tape
Alabama game.
that we like. We need that A+ Alabama game. That's what we need because he's. I mean, they got uh, Richardson, Ogunjobi, Olivier Vernon, Adrian Claiborne is back and healthy. And look, this is going to be one of the two times this year I don't give Miles Garrett a bunch of crap because he owns Villanueva. Like he owns Alejandro Villanueva. He has a parking spot in Alejandro Villanueva's driveway with his name on it. Like I am very nervous because he regularly does bad stuff against him. It is a mess every time. Look, he's no defensive player of the year and he stinks. But this week he might have like 14 sacks. So I'm worried. Yeah, it's gonna be a good game.
I agree. I think it's going to be a really fun game. I can't really figure out who I think is going to win. That's happened to me a few times. So 2 weeks in a row, I've been like, I kind of like Cleveland. And I've been like, but they're the Browns. And I've gone the other way. Um,
I was all bluster last week. I said on the podcast I was like all Colts, but as you may remember, I said like, look, Cleveland should win this game by 10. I said it, and I went back and I was like, so they're gonna, and I picked them. I picked Cleveland, and in the pick'ems. So if I were a betting man who was here to make money, and I could think with my brain, I'd probably be telling you to take Cleveland because they're getting points with the spread, and I think talent wise, I think they're better, and I think they're well coached now,
yeah.
and I think the Steelers have still yet to really play to their potential, and I think that they're going to run up against an opponent where they have to, and it might be this week. But of course, I've never picked against the Steelers, and I will not be waffling on that pick
Oh,
after this
yeah.
podcast. I will take the Steelers. They could be favored by 14, and I'd take them, and I would just accept the loss. I'd expect a close game. Um, that's not unusual in division rivalry games, so I know I'm not, revolutionizing the prognostication business here, but it's really fun. And again, as we close out the discussion of this game, I can't emphasize enough, especially when the Steelers' defensive line is facing the Cleveland offensive line. There's going to be some really, really good battles going on in there. So hopefully we'll have some fun stuff to talk about next week, like you know Cam Hayward dominating another guy bull rush into Baker Mayfield or something.
Yeah. Cleveland is catching 3.5 points right now.
Yeah. So,
I would take that side. That side is pretty juicy. This will probably be a close game, and it should be really fun. So, if your team's playing at 4, or if you don't have anything better to do, or if you've got Sunday ticket or whatever, like this is a good game to like flip back to when your game's in commercial or whatever. Like, it should be very high level football, no matter who is on offense, and that is kind of rare these days.
word game of the week. We already covered it.
For
Now
sure.
let's talk about the riffraff.
All right.
So Bengals.
Yeah, Bengals going to I don't it's not the RCA Dome anymore. Indianapolis. The Lucas Oil Stadium. Is that right? They didn't
That
change it
sounds
since
right.
then, I don't think.
I
Home of
think
the
you're right.
Big Ten championship game. To
There you go.
face Phillip Rivers, the pride of North Carolina State University, and arm pretty much probably dead. Legs definitely dead. I think that the clock is running out on Philip Rivers. He already single-handedly cost the Colts a game last week, in my opinion, and Cincinnati could very well win this football game, and if they do, T's and P's to Philip Rivers because it would be Jacoby Brissett time. Um, the Colts, what they want to do is run the ball and pass off of that, but their starting running back is hurt, and their backups are
Taylor?
good for
Jonathan Taylor?
backups. No, Marlon Mack. He's been out
But
for a
who
few
cares?
weeks.
Dude, that doesn't matter. Jonathan Taylor is the rookie first round. He's good. Well, he might have been drafted in the second round, but he's basically a first round guy.
Yeah, we all know you like Jonathan Taylor.
He's good.
He's fine. It's still a backfield committee, and so we'll
Dude,
see. Joe Burrow,
he
right the
has
ship. Zach Taylor, bounce back. The Colts aren't going to do the same type of things that the Ravens are going to do to you from either vantage point, as far as like the invisible pressure of the possibility of the offense going off and the back end of the secondary locking down all your receivers.
Dude, I shared your enthusiasm. The Bengals are my people now. And I wanted it. I wanted to look at this Colts team and be like, yes, I think the Bengals got him. I'm very nervous. I'm very nervous for a few reasons. You accurately and well described the Colts offensive philosophy. Here's a problem. The Bengals only thing that really dramatically improved their rush defense up to this point this year was DJ Reader
DJ
in
Reader.
the inside. He's hurt. He's out probably for the season, which basically means that if you can imagine any running play against the Bengals at any point last year, that's basically what we're going to get going forward. Geno Geno Atkins is playing, but he didn't do anything last week. He's coming off of an injury. This is bad. And I'm not saying Jonathan Taylor is like an all pro running back, but he's good, he's energetic, he's young, he's fast and strong, and the Bengals don't tackle very well. So I don't see anything about the Bengals defensive talent or history that leads me to believe that they have the capacity to stop the Colts from just doing their traditional game plan. Not to mention that Mackenzie Alexander and Darius Phillips are battling injuries. They've both been limited in practice all week. And if you're like, hey, Chad, I don't follow the Bengals, that's their cornerbacks. That's the people that are defending. So if they can't stop the run and their cornerbacks are hurt, I mean, Jesse Bates is going to be everywhere. But you know what? Football fields are big, Joey. They're very big, and Jesse Bates just can't be everywhere. He can be some places sometimes, and the rest of the time, the Colts are being getting a bunch of yards. And that's just the offense. That's just the offense. On defense, do we have to talk about Cincinnati's offensive line? Do we have to?
No.
Okay, then we'll talk about the Colts defensive line. It's got DeForest Buckner and Justin
Stud.
Houston.
Stud.
You know what they do? They tackle quarterbacks professionally at a very high rate. And Joe Burrow gets sacked like 8 times a game. So if you want to know who's going to be in the lead of the NFL in sacks after next week, it's going to be either Justin Houston or DeForest Buckner, because they both have a bunch of sacks and they're both going to get like 4 this week. This is a problem. It's a problem. The only thing, we never cheer for injuries on this podcast, but I bet the Bengals are right now, is that Darius Leonard may not play. He hasn't practiced. He missed the last game. He still hasn't practiced this week. He's a middle linebacker for the Colts. He's kind of the straw that stirs the drink, if you'll allow it. So that could help the Bengals get things going with Joe Mixon, maybe. But frankly, if we're being honest with ourselves, it's not really the Bengals' identity anymore. Like the Bengals' identity is spread them out with Joe, and then if the defensive alignment is forgiving, and when I say Joe, I mean Joe Burrow, then you give it to Joe Mixon if the box is kind of cleared out. And I just don't think they're committed to protecting Joe with the running game, Joe Burrow. Um, I just don't think that that's what the play calling and the history has shown. So I don't see any reason why we'd expect it. So basically, Justin Houston and DeForest Buckner are like, they're just absolutely thrilled. This is like the best week of their lives right now, right? I mean, like
So find total team sacks bet for the Colts and hammer the over.
Unless it's 5 or more, but if it's 4, you got to take it. I don't think Joe Burrow has been sacked less than 5 times. Like he's getting sacked all the time. So yeah, I think I'm on the Colts on this one. Like I don't think it matters that Philip Rivers isn't what he used to be. And I'm sorry to say that. I'll be cheering for the Bengals. I think if they beat the Colts, it's a huge, huge win. Like,
Yeah,
I mean, they beat the Jaguars. Like, this is a different caliber of opponent.
agreed. So Cincinnati is +8 in that game for all the reasons that Chad just laid out for us and more. Um, yeah, sledding doesn't get any easier for the rookie quarterback. And to round out next week's division slate, Baltimore is heading to the Link in Philadelphia, the home of Rocky Balboa, city of brotherly love, Pats, Geno's, cheesesteaks, Wit Whiz.
Nice,
Yeah,
nice, good
yeah.
stuff, man. You know how to do it.
And they are 8-point favorites against former 13-game MVP and presumptive 3-down back Miles Sanders, and no receivers. Some guy named Fulgham, who was probably stocking shelves at the buy low last week before coming to practice.
Do you think it's a testament to the Ravens' regression that the Steelers just beat the Eagles by 9 and then the Ravens are favored by 8?
Yeah, it is weird that the Ravens, typically these types of games, the Ravens are favored by like 13. So,
It's just interesting that that would happen in that order. And that's even after the physical beating that the Eagles took from the Steelers coming off of that, softening them up for the Ravens that they
yeah,
would still make that kind of line. Now I'm not an expert like Las Vegas, so I'm just throwing it out there. I'm just
yeah,
throwing it out there.
yeah. Well, typically I like to use the Steelers as a measuring stick whenever possible. And so normally the Steelers are beating like these real bad teams by like 6, 7, 8 points. And so when they do that, the Ravens beat these real bad teams by like 17, 24 points. And so the Steelers beat the Eagles by 9 points. And so the Ravens should beat the Eagles by my calculations, approximately 71 points on Sunday.
So I mean, easy money then, right?
Yeah, bet the
You put
over and give the points away.
How many units is your mortgage?
A lot.
Joey is putting a lot of units on the Ravens this week. That one's for you, Brenna. Just so you know.
Yeah.
Don't put too much on the credit card this weekend.
Um,
Seriously though,
I,
Travis Fulgham, I watched him closely. He is clearly a combination of Chris Carter, Terrell Owens, and Antonio Gates. Like he can't be defended. So
that was proven
Wink
on
is
Sunday. Yeah.
I think it was. I think it was. So Wink is going to be up nights. He's sleeping at the office. He's sleeping at the office scheming to figure out Fulgham. This guy is a nightmare. He's Nightmare on Elm Street. He's the
It's
beginning of Halloween movie marathon. It's already started, and it's starting on CBS on your local television in Baltimore.
it's the question that every NFL defensive coordinator is asking themselves. How do we win the Lombardi this year without figuring out how to contain Travis Fulgham? Is that his
Look,
name, Travis?
yeah,
Okay.
pretty sure.
Yeah, I mean, so Wentz has been playing like a rookie quarterback, basically. Um, this year, he's been running himself into sacks and trying to make hero passes. He did it last game. He tried to while he was taking a sack, like shuffle the ball away to a running back that could have ended really, really badly. Um, just
Yeah,
has not been playing well, and he is not getting any help from all his injured teammates because they're all injured. Like the offensive line is a mash unit. The wide receivers, the number one wide receiver is Greg Ward, I think, or maybe now it's Travis Fulgham. Um,
oh yeah, oh yeah. I think that's well established at this point.
and
You don't have that kind of game against the Steelers and not.
yeah, and in true Eagles fashion, their secondary stinks out loud.
Dude, they're so bad. Darius Slay's good though.
Their linebackers can't cover anybody. Uh, so basically, Fletcher Cox is their only hope.
I disagree. I think that you are not giving the Eagles pass rush due credit. I'm going to throw some names at you, and then I'm going to throw some sack numbers, and you are going to feel the full weight of the pressure that Lamar has struggled with this year a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
These are the outside guys: Derek Barnett, 2.5 sacks; Josh Sweat, 3 sacks; Brandon Graham, 3 sacks; Jannard Avery, 1.5 sacks. Those are the guys that if you don't follow the NFL that closely, you don't maybe know who they are. That's a bunch of sacks. Then you've got the inside: Fletcher Cox, Javon Hargrave, Malik Jackson. Guess what? It's hard to do when those hogs are in the middle. Help the tackles. It's very hard to help the tackles. So this is like a legit pass rush. Lamar, look, I get it. Lamar Jackson is a unanimous MVP. He's only ever been tackled when he gives his express written permission. I get it. I get it. But you know what? This year he's been sacked. The Ravens' offensive line hasn't been as good at protecting him. They haven't given him the lanes to step up and out of the pocket. Multiple elements fail on the same play, and he gets sacked. And the Eagles have the guys to do it repeatedly to the Ravens. Now, as you stated, the Eagles' offense probably isn't good enough to keep them in the game, like deep into the game, and really make it a long-term worry. But early in the game, if Lamar is being stupid and having a game like he did last week and not throwing accurately and not making good reads and they're not calling their best running plays or whatever excuse you want to make. Oh, they're not calling their best running plays. That's why the running game isn't what it was. They could struggle with this defensive front. Fortunately, it's all the defensive front and Darius Slay. And usually in the NFL, if you only have 5 viable players on the field out of 11, you're in deep shit. That appears to be what the Eagles' defense is. They so even though I think Lamar could have moments of struggle, and I will hold on to those so tight in order to talk about next week. Um, I think that there's enough mismatches, especially with the linebackers and safeties, that um, if you were thinking about taking Mark Andrews out of your lineup because you're an idiot, you're like a super idiot this week because Darius Slay will probably do okay against Hollywood Brown, and Mark Andrews will probably have like 64 touchdowns.
Yep. And we'll be back here next week talking about Lamar's struggles in another 20-point win.
you know that if he had one bad play, I'm going to try and act like it was a trend for the whole year.
I'd expect nothing less.
Well, I got to do something until we actually play.
Which is for the Ravens not to look ahead, but let's look ahead. After this, the Ravens have a bye week, and then the Steelers.
Yeah. And honestly, if the Steelers lose to the Browns, it'll probably feel less important to the Ravens. If they beat the Browns, then this might be the way to get. And I said in our preview of the season, like, I don't know if the Ravens consider it a rivalry, but I'll tell you this: if they go into that first game down a game, they'll be, there will be no qualms about the Ravens finding the intensity or any of that. They're professionals, so they always find it. But it'll be a legit rivalry game if the records are not tied at the point that it's played. Yes, but hopefully we'll just get to talk about the Ravens losing to the Eagles. That'll be hilarious.
Jeez. Put me on a milk carton if that happens.
I like how every week you say that.
Oh, I mean, last week I said it, and the Ravens won by 24 points. So, and the week before they were playing the Washington professional football team. So I think it's been founded when I've said it. I didn't say it against the Texans.
Bread be darned. I want a real number, not 71. The Ravens, how much do they win by this week?
16. It's conservative pregame, Joey.
Conservative pregame, Joey. Tell Dean to his face that you're going to beat his team by 16. You did it. That's conservative. That's the nicest, most polite Joey respecting your team. He respects your team to the tune of a 16-point drubbing. And that's the way it is. The AFC North is the best division in football.
Hey, I know a 16-point win's like unfathomable to a Steelers fan, but a 16-point win's pretty hunky-dory for the Ravens.
I mean, usually when the Steelers go up by 16, the other team just leaves.
Or they just...
It's like winning by... It's like the 10-run rule in Little League.
The mercy.
That's really not
Have
true.
Mercy.
They actually, like, when the Steelers go up big, they actually, like, go into prevent defense.
Yeah, they just give it right back.
They're beating the Eagles by 16.
Yeah.
Oh, man. AFC North. It's so much fun. Myles Garrett stinks. Just wanted to say that one more time.
Oh,
it's
man.
my last time.
Do you know where Travis Fulgham went to college?
I didn't even know his first name or his position.
He's got a nickname, too. It's not good. Travis Fullyard Fulgham.
I can't believe he torched the Steelers. Full yard.
He played college football at Old Dominion.
Full yard. That sounds like the nickname that a wrestler that does like mattress matches gives themselves. God dang. We're never gonna live this one down.
This guy murdered the Steelers on Sunday.
Well, just mind yourself because you got him this week. You never know. You never know.
Any given Sunday.
I'll tell you right now, if he just holds on to that ball the way Juju did the first time Marlon Humphrey tried to punch it, I'm going to be putting that as a background on your phone.
That's fine. You can put it next to the scoreboard, and we'll see how that goes.
Fair enough. All right, tune in Sunday. If you don't want to watch the AFC North, Joey and I will be ignoring all the games to do a Browns special draft episode because we know what's important.
At 1 p.m. on Sunday.
Cheers
and with
to that.
Thank you for joining us. We hope you had a good time. Oh, Dean, preparing for the loss any given Sunday, he just said. He said, I'm hedging. I'm preparing for the loss. Dean, you missed it when I said conservatively, gentlemanly, I predicted that the Ravens will beat the Eagles by 16 points, buddy. So, there you go. Because I'm nice. Because I'm in a giving mood. Rather than 71. On that note, join us next week where we can recap the Browns beating the Steelers. Joe Burrow throwing for 500 yards and 4 touchdowns against the Colts and getting sacked 0 times. And the Ravens beating the Eagles by 71 points.
And me repeating as the weekly Pick'em champion.